I've always been a stargazer. The night sky over Socorro, New Mexico, was my happy place. But that night, the sky betrayed me. It was April 24th, 1964, a date that would forever be etched into my memory, not as a night of wonder, but as a time of unspeakable terror. You see, this was the night I became a part of the Lonnie Zamora Incident, a true event that was reported but never fully explained. But unlike Lonnie, a police officer who saw the craft but was never abducted, I was taken. And what they did to me, what they showed me, was just the beginning of a horror that defies all human understanding. I was driving back from a friend's house, the radio humming softly with the latest Beatles hit. The desert road was empty, illuminated only by the dim glow of my car's headlights and the shimmering stars above. I was lost in thought, contemplating the vastness of the universe, when a sudden deafening roar shattered the silence. My car trembled. I slammed on the brakes, my heart pounding in my chest. The roar intensified, morphing into a high-pitched whine that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. I looked up and saw it, a blinding light descending rapidly from the sky. "What the hell is that?" I muttered to myself, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. The light landed about 100 yards away, casting an eerie glow on the desert landscape. Curiosity overcame my fear. I turned off the engine, grabbed my flashlight, and stepped out of the car. The air was thick with a metallic smell, like burnt copper. My legs wobbled as I walked toward the light, my flashlight flickering as if in protest. As I got closer, the light dimmed, revealing a craft unlike anything I'd ever seen. It was oval-shaped, with a smooth, metallic surface that seemed to absorb the surrounding darkness. A hatch opened, and for a moment I considered running back to my car, but something compelled me to stay, a morbid curiosity that I would soon regret. "Hello?" I called out, my voice trembling. "Is anyone there?" No response. Then the figures appeared. They were tall, at least 7 feet, with elongated heads and eyes that glowed a malevolent yellow. They stepped out of the craft, moving in unison like a well-rehearsed dance troupe. My heart sank as they approached me, their eyes never leaving mine. "Who are you? What do you want?" I stammered, backing away. One of them raised its arm, and before I could react, a beam of light shot out, enveloping me in a cocoon of blinding luminescence. My body went limp, my vision blurred, and the last thing I remember was being lifted off the ground, the figures carrying me toward the craft as my consciousness slipped away. I woke up in a room, or at least something resembling a room. The walls were translucent, pulsating with a soft, otherworldly light. I was lying on a table, my body paralyzed but my senses acutely aware of the figures standing over me. They were communicating not through words, but through a series of clicks and whistles that echoed through the chamber. I wanted to scream, to run, to do anything to escape this nightmare. But all I could do was lie there, helpless, as they began their examination. My mind was a whirlpool of terror and confusion. I couldn't move, couldn't speak, but I could feel everything. The figures moved around me, their elongated fingers manipulating instruments that floated in the air, glowing with the same eerie light that filled the room. One of them leaned over me, its yellow eyes peering into mine. I felt a surge of emotion, not from me but from it. Curiosity? Pity? I couldn't tell. It placed a cold, metallic object against my forehead, and images flooded my mind. Flashes of distant galaxies, mathematical equations, DNA helixes, and something darker, something I couldn't comprehend. "Stop it, please!" I wanted to scream, but my voice was trapped, a prisoner in my own body. The figure removed the object, and the torrent of images ceased, leaving me gasping for air I couldn't feel. Another figure approached, holding what looked like a glass vial filled with a luminescent liquid. It inserted a thin tube into the vial, then into my arm. A burning sensation spread through my veins, followed by an icy chill. The figure stepped back, their eyes, those malevolent yellow eyes, still fixed on me. The room darkened, and the walls seemed to close in, as if the chamber itself was breathing. Then, with a jolt, the table beneath me tilted, and I was returned to a vertical position. The paralysis lifted, and I collapsed onto the floor, my body trembling uncontrollably. I looked up and saw the figures standing by a panel on the wall, their hands moving in intricate patterns. The wall dissolved, revealing a window, and what I saw took my breath away. We were in space, orbiting Earth, but it wasn't the Earth I knew. Continents were misshapen, oceans replaced by sprawling deserts, and massive storms raged across the surface. It was a vision of apocalypse, a future too horrific to contemplate. "Why are you showing me this?" I whispered, tears streaming down my face. One of the figures turned to me, its eyes softer now, almost sorrowful. It raised its arm, and the room filled with those haunting clicks and whistles. And then, in a voice that wasn't a voice, in words that weren't words, it spoke to me. "You need to understand." Understand what? The question echoed in my mind as the room faded to black, and I felt myself being lifted again, carried back to that desolate desert road, back to a world that remained blissfully ignorant of the horrors that lurked beyond the stars. But I knew, and the knowledge was a weight I could never shed, a darkness that would forever taint my soul. I awoke to the familiar hum of my car's engine and the soft glow of the dashboard lights. The desert road stretched out before me, the stars overhead twinkling innocently as if nothing had happened. But the metallic taste in my mouth and the lingering chill in my bones told a different story. I pulled over, my hands shaking as I tried to process what had just occurred. The memories were fragmented, like shards of broken glass, each piece reflecting a different facet of the nightmare. The figures, the examination, the apocalyptic vision of Earth, they all swirled in my mind, a maelstrom of terror and confusion. "Why me?" I whispered, tears streaming down my face. "What do you want from me?" As if in response, a sharp pain lanced through my head, and a flood of images and emotions washed over me. I saw the figures again, but this time they were different, frail, their once glowing eyes dimmed with sadness. They were on a dying planet, their civilization crumbling around them, victims of their own hubris and greed. I felt their desperation, their longing for a second chance, a new beginning, and I realized that they weren't the monsters I had believed them to be. They were refugees, searching for a new home, a new hope, and they had chosen Earth. But they had also seen our future, a future shaped by our own destructive tendencies. The apocalyptic vision they had shown me was a warning, a plea for change. They wanted to help us, to guide us away from the path of self-destruction. But they needed a messenger, someone to bridge the gap between our worlds, and they had chosen me. The weight of the revelation was overwhelming. I was just an ordinary man with ordinary dreams and fears. How could I carry such a burden, such a responsibility? But as the first rays of dawn broke over the horizon, I knew that I couldn't turn away. I had been given a purpose, a mission, and I would see it through no matter the cost. I returned home, a changed man carrying an unimaginable burden. Time passed and I found myself increasingly isolated, consumed by the message I had been chosen to deliver. Friends and family grew concerned, but how could I explain the unexplainable? How could I share a truth so monumental, so terrifying? I decided to document everything, to create a record that could serve as a guide, a warning for humanity. I spent sleepless nights writing, recording videos, collecting evidence, anything that could lend credence to my story. And when I was done, I released it to the world, bracing myself for the ridicule, the disbelief, the backlash. But the reaction was not what I expected. The story went viral, capturing the imagination of millions. Scientists, theologians, and conspiracy theorists all weighed in, dissecting every detail, every claim. And for a moment I dared to hope. Maybe the message would get through, maybe humanity would listen, would change. That's when they returned. I was lying in bed staring at the ceiling, when the familiar roar filled the air, shaking the walls of my house. I rushed to the window and saw the craft, its lights pulsating in the night sky. A beam of light shot down, and I felt myself being lifted, carried back to the place of my nightmares. The figures greeted me, their eyes glowing with what I interpreted as approval. They led me to the chamber, now filled with a holographic display of Earth, its continents and oceans rendered in breathtaking detail. "We are pleased," they communicated, their clicks and whistles filling the air. "You have done well." "Does this mean you'll help us?" I asked, my voice tinged with desperation. "Will you share your knowledge, your technology?" The figures exchanged glances, their eyes dimming for a moment before returning to me. "We have already begun," they replied. As they spoke, the holographic display changed, zooming in on various locations around the globe: military bases, government buildings, research facilities. And I saw them, figures identical to my abductors, interacting with people, manipulating events, shaping the course of human history. A wave of horror washed over me as I realized the truth. They weren't here to save us. They were here to replace us, to infiltrate our society, to control our destiny. And I had helped them, had been their unwitting accomplice. "You said you needed a messenger," I whispered, my voice trembling. "But you never said for whom." The figures looked at me, their eyes glowing brighter than ever, and for the first time, I understood the emotion they were projecting: triumph. The room faded to black, and I felt myself being returned to Earth, to a world that remained blissfully ignorant of the malevolent force that now lurked among them. And as I stood there, staring at the night sky, I knew that the real horror had only just begun.